Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It's me, Addy, again, and I hope you guys are doing alright. So, today we're going to be flying into the world of Hyrule, or more specifically, my review of The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I know you guys might be wondering why I'm so late with this review, and the truth is that just like with last year's open world behemoth, Elden Ring, I refused to rush this game, and instead opted to take my sweet time with it, not only because that's what open world games typically beckon from you, but because this is just one of those games that you just can't put down. It really is that magical. And even though I'm soaring through the Hyrulean skies at you guys with this review today, I'm still not ready to put this game down. I might have just finished the main story, but there's just so much more for me to do in the expansive and richly layered, sort of a pun intended, world of Hyrule. I'm not done with the multitude of side content, optional locations, and secrets that took up a solid chunk of my playtime and kept me from progressing the main story for so long. But you know what? I don't regret any of it. I don't regret the countless hours I spent revisiting and exploring this beautiful world that was introduced to us in Breath of the Wild. And neither should you if you decide to play this game, which, spoilers, you totally should. But alright, let's back up here for a sec, right? I'm already coming at you guys here telling you guys to go out and buy this game right now, but I haven't given you guys any solid reasons as to why you should, aka a review. So allow me to identify some of the key aspects that make this game as amazing as it is, while trying really hard not to swoon over too many of them, since I'll be honest, I can see myself getting so easily distracted by every little wonderful thing there is to talk about with this game. And just like I got distracted by every little thing there was to do and explore in the game itself that kept me from finishing it for so long. But no, today the distractions of the kingdom officially end and the review for Tears of the Kingdom officially begins. So here we go. Now, as a direct sequel to the wildly successful Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom builds upon the foundations of its predecessor impeccably. Nintendo's design philosophy with this game seemed to be centered around enabling players to engage with a cherished and familiar world in a truly innovative and immersive manner. With Breath of the Wild, Nintendo introduced us to this world and allowed us to familiarize ourselves with it. They brought Hyrule to life in an open world setting for the first time in the series, while also revolutionizing the genre by changing the way that players progress through this kind of world. The game placed a strong emphasis on encouraging player exploration and fostering it to the highest degree possible. It provided a vast, non-linear world full of colorful landmarks for players to explore at their own pace without excessive hand-holding. This approach empowered players to discover and interact with the game's systems and environments for themselves, and as a result, feel this immense sense of freedom and agency in their adventure. This is one of the primary reasons why Breath of the Wild is so highly praised. It revitalized a genre that was, in my opinion, growing stale and repetitive. And thankfully, Nintendo's take on the genre didn't begin and end with Breath of the Wild, for it wasn't long before we began seeing other titles derive inspiration from it. The biggest one, of course, being its sequel 6 years later, Tears of the Kingdom. This is a game that retains the same exact world you explored in Breath of the Wild, except for the myriad of additional locations, some small and some gargantuan, all of which flawlessly continue to cultivate the same sense of player curiosity and exploration that was at the core of the previous game. But now, that core has shifted. It's no longer about exploration, but about creativity. And it's as if with the sequel, Nintendo went, alright, you know what, you guys have had over half a decade to get comfy with this rendition of Hyrule. Now, let's unleash your creativity and encourage you to think outside the box within this established world. And that's what Tears of the Kingdom is all about. This is a game where you can combine a wide array of up to 21 objects to create virtually anything you can imagine, from monster trucks to flying machines to contraptions that change the age rating of this game. The only limit to what you can build in Tears of the Kingdom truly is your own imagination, and the entirety of the game's level design is centered around this concept, as you'll have to find creative solutions to navigate through the twisty world and its puzzles, the latter of which is a trademark element of the Zelda series and continues to be implemented wonderfully in this game. I was astonished at the leniency here. and how there was just never a wrong approach to overcoming any obstacle I was presented with. That's my way, not the Nintendo way. This wasn't just made possible by how you can build pretty much any invention you want in order to get through any puzzle, but also because you can combine your various abilities in really unique ways to come up with your solutions. Abilities such as Ultra Hand, which is what gives you the power to glue things together in the first place, as well as Recall, which allows you to literally send any targeted object back through time, can be combined to come up with a million crazy solutions to the same obstacle. Oh, hang on. What if I do that? And then do that. Get him there. All right, okay. And then push this guy across. Like so. Bam, bam, ba-da-ba. Okay, that pedal there, that's not too good. Good thing I can... That works! Okay, perfect. That was totally the intended way of doing it. And we're just gonna leave it at that, and we are going to move on with our lives. And it was so fun to do things my way on my own playthrough, and, you know, to then visit other folks' streams or watch my own brother play through the game on his file to see the solutions that they would come up with for the segments I'd been through earlier. This also kind of made for some really funny moments too, you know, most of which kind of made me feel stupid. Oh, so when they line up, is that when the doors open? Yeah, okay. Oh, dude, I get it. We have to move it and make it still for like a good couple seconds and then use Recall on it, because Recall retraces the object's footsteps, if you will. And the footsteps are going to create for this is for it to be frozen. So if we make it frozen and then you use Ultra Hand on the other guy to line him up with the first guy, then use Recall on the first guy, he's not going to move and we'll have time to get through.
What the hell are you talking about?
Shit. Game requires you to be a big brain like that. I love it. Okay, so Ultra Hand, we freeze him in time for like, you know, a good 10 seconds, I would say. And now, here's your call there. Oh my god, this is fucking cool. And then we use that guy. Okay, come on, turn. No, wait, sorry, I'm missing the wrong ability. No! Damn it, we almost had it. Finally, there we go. It took us a little minute, but we got it. But your creative freedom doesn't just end there with the various inventions and ability combinations you can come up with, for it extends to the game's combat as well. Through yet another new ability called Fusion, Tears of the Kingdom allows you to combine your weapons, shields, and bows with any item or object in the game. Heck, you can even fuse them with each other. This not only allows for various status effects and unique properties on the weird and literally wacky armaments that you construct, but it also enables you to deal with the glaring issue in Breath of the Wild in a really clever way. And that's the weapon durability. In Breath of the Wild, your weapons broke, and sometimes far too frequently, which was slightly annoying for many, myself included. And while Nintendo didn't exactly get rid of that aspect of the game in the sequel, they made it far more tolerable though through the fusion mechanic, since it allows for your weapons that are nearly broken to regain their durability after being combined with something else. And you know, I can appreciate that instead of completely doing away with something that wasn't great, they found a nice little compromise through which they could keep the mechanic yet make it significantly better. Big Stick is badly damaged? I got just the thing, game, don't you worry. Mr. Onuma told me I could fix this problem. This little pickle we find ourselves in. Wait, we can combine a melee weapon with a bow. What? Hold on. Oh shit, that's fucking hilarious. I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, this is the result. That's cool. But you guys, my favorite thing when it comes to fusion in Tears of the Kingdom is the fact that every little item, both old and new in these games, have been given a meaningful purpose now. Even the monster parts, which in the previous game were really only there for cooking elixirs. And I loved mainly fusing these said monster parts in addition to a plethora of other items, such as the iconic bombs, and these new and unique flora to my arrowheads in order to blast things, hone in on enemies, light up dark caverns, confuse enemies, create smoke screens, elementally damage them like in the previous games, and so much more. The sheer variety of arrows you can fire in this game and just overall the types of weapons you can invent through fusion made combat such a good time, especially when you consider that you're fighting against a greater variety of enemies in this game. That's right, now you're not just facing off against 1,000,001 different bokoblins and Lizalfos like in the last game, but here you're actually presented with so many new and disgusting fiends to face off against in Tears of the Kingdom, including some epic super bosses. Let's not forget that they were as scary as they were epic, in the best way possible. Okay, let's go check out this dragon again. Let's try and mount it from the top. Is that even possible? Holy shit, imagine. Okay, come on, come on. Gotta get close. Eat your stamina food, Link. Let's go. Oh my god. Oh my god. No.
Whoa. No. No, we're not doing that. No.
If he's shooting though, is he an enemy? Oh my god, he's a fucking boss. No fucking way. Holy shit. Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. Okay. Noted. Noted. I got the memo. Yes. Very much so noted. Notes have been made. Very big and bold and mental notes. And speaking of all the new enemy additions to the game, I think that this is a great place to segue into what's been added physically to this world. Like I said, so far we've just been talking about the enemies and also what's been added mechanically to Hyrule here and how all of that fosters your creativity. But what are the new locations that await you here? Where can you go that you couldn't before in Breath of the Wild? And my answer is up and down. That's really about it. Thanks for checking out the review, guys. But in all seriousness though, the way in which Nintendo expanded Hyrule for Tears of the Kingdom was brilliant. And I have never personally, like, I don't know about you guys, but I have never ever personally seen this approach to iterating on a game world before. But okay, let's just back up here real quick, right? Of course, for starters, they embedded some brand new areas such as these really cool caves with interesting treasures and enemies within, areas that we've already seen before. And they redesigned those set areas to accommodate for all the building that you can now do in this game. But the main thing here that I freaking love is that as opposed to just stretching the world horizontally and allowing players to access new areas and adventures within the same elevation from the previous game, Nintendo instead opted to add to the verticality of Hyrule, literally sending players to the sky. Something you might already be familiar with, given how the skies of this game were a big part of its marketing. I adored the Sky Islands in Tears of the Kingdom with their pensive and sometimes chaotic nature. Okay, we gotta grab the middle thing. Nice. Dude, that's so awesome. You gotta like rip him off. Dude, this is such a cool boss. I love that you have to use like a combination of your weapons and your like abilities. Got you. Nice. Not so bad. Okay, now it's probably gonna get pretty bad. Might want to get out of there, Link. They offer so much to do, including these really fun mini games, labyrinths that lead you on epic adventures, and so much more. And the beauty of it all is that it seamlessly connects back to the surface, as you can quite literally Fortnite drop back to the land of Hyrule without any loading screens to interrupt you.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
The skydiving feels so good in this game, and in general, just soaring through the skies with all the various amazing inventions you can build truly added a layer of immersion I don't think I've ever felt before while exploring an open world. And while I did admittedly feel like a majority of the archipelagos you explore up in the skies don't ever recapture the grandiosity of the Great Sky Island that you begin the game on, which is a little odd considering that they were marketed aggressively prior to the game's launch, this still didn't detract from how much fun I had just exploring each and every one of them. And hey, I can totally see Nintendo adding DLC in the future that adds so much more to do in the skies. But ultimately, what more than makes up for this is the sheer amount of time you'll spend in the depths, the very antithesis to the skies. A place we never knew was going to exist prior to this game releasing. An area that evokes fear and dread and is the very hell that festers beneath the verdant land of Hyrule. And an unholy place that rivals the extensive underground network in the lands between of Elden Ring. The depths are arguably where you'll be spending a bulk of your time playing Tears of the Kingdom, as you battle through waves with these abominable and cursed versions of the enemies you fight back on the surface, mine to collect invaluable minerals and treasures, and work tenaciously to access these epic light routes to brighten up and demystify this pitch black pit. The gameplay loop here is extraordinarily addictive, and to tell you the truth, this was where I personally had the most fun in this game, as I went from being completely powerless in this terrifying realm to overcoming its nightmares and conquering the darkness as I got stronger with more hearts, stamina, formidable weaponry, and more. And the icing on the cake here was once again the level traversal. Nintendo did something truly ingenious here. They quite literally flipped the surface on its head, making valleys mountains and mountains valleys down in the depths, and even adding these little extra secrets in, like having light routes be underneath shrines, the mighty Lionel enemies being right underneath stables, and so much more, thereby allowing players to navigate and discover new areas using their prior knowledge of what they found in both the depths and the surface. This means of player progression was brilliant, and I fucking loved it. I mentioned this a couple times on my playthrough, but I have to say it again here. In my opinion, the Legend of Zelda series has always been my favorite when it comes to level design. Yes, even better than a very close second to me, which are the Soulsborne games by From Software. And it's stuff like this that I was just talking about that truly exemplifies why I hold this perspective. Now, I did make some mention of shrines and stables and Lionels and, those kind of things, and so I feel like this is a good place to mention that a majority of locations, quests, and concepts in Tears of the Kingdom strongly parallel what came before in Breath of the Wild. Some examples, like I said, shrines are still a thing that densely populate the world, both on land and sky islands, that offer you a myriad of puzzles and trials to work through in order to accumulate enough spirit orbs to then acquire either more hearts or stamina. And a quick side note I want to mention here is that I much prefer the shrines in this game, both aesthetically and mechanically. The puzzles, colors, music, I preferred all of it to Breath of the Wild, and none of it ever felt like it was getting repetitive, mainly since the shrines in this game pretty much all rely on your creativity, which is limitless. And then you have things like the major dungeons that you can go through in order to progress the main story, which in this game were implemented far better and were so much more enjoyable in my opinion. Like, they brought back freaking elemental temples from old school Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time, my favorite Zelda game ever. And oh my gosh, like even the map layout, man, such a simple thing that I was freaking out over. I know it seems really silly, but just seeing the map layout and the map layout being identical to the old school Zelda games was just such a huge throwback. And all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed the process of getting to these dungeons and working my way through them. It was all just such an epic nostalgia trip with a new coat of paint, the best kind there is. And then on top of completing each dungeon in every distinct region of Hyrule from the last game, you unlock companions, again, just like in the last game, who fight alongside you and make you an even more powerful Hylian, some of whom are invaluable, and others who I kind of forgot were with me altogether, but we'll touch on that shortly. Overall, I thought that a lot of what mimicked Breath of the Wild in this game was enjoyable, and I really didn't mind that mimicking a majority of it was the approach to design that Nintendo decided to take here. And like I told you guys, most of these recurring concepts didn't just have to do with the locations and gameplay content, but also the quests which entail the story, and more specifically, the storytelling. And now when it comes to the storytelling, this is probably the only area where I kinda wish Tears of the Kingdom took its own approach to it, as opposed to trying to parallel its predecessor. See, in Breath of the Wild, there's a long side quest that involves you visiting optional locations in a non-linear fashion in order to shed more light in the game's story. And while that works splendidly in the context of that game, I just feel like that non-linear method of storytelling didn't quite work with Tears of the Kingdom's narrative, which brings back that very same concept of visiting these optional zones in order to demystify a lot of its story. Given its specific narrative context, I think this game would have benefited if its story were to be told in a much more linear fashion. And I know I'm being really cryptic right now with regards to the game's story, And that's because I don't want to give any spoilers away or anything like that. But you know what? It would be a crime to not at least touch on the game's premise and its story as a whole, considering how beautiful it all was. Because in spite of some of its flaws, when it comes to the storytelling, the story itself was amazing. For the first time in a long time, we finally saw the return of one of the greatest villains in video game history in his greatest depiction yet, at least in my opinion, and that is the Demon King himself, Ganondorf. Everything from his design to his voice performance by Matt Mercer was impeccable, and the way in which he returns and kickstarts the narrative of good versus evil that permeates the series was simply badass. Our favorite Hylian and hero of Hyrule who we control, Link. Sorry, there's been a little mix-up. I wasn't actually talking about this Link. This is the legendary Link, the legend himself that Shigeru Miyamoto named the video game character after. You can go chill for a little bit. You deserve a little break, legendary Link. And the graceful Princess Zelda must battle through time itself to once again save the kingdom from Ganondorf's gloomy clutches. And assisting us from the sidelines are some of the coolest side characters I've ever seen, specifically the ancient and highly advanced race from who we derive all this crazy technology that we fuse together to build our inventions, the Zonai, who are so intriguing and added so much to this story, including a pretty badass prosthetic arm for Link, allowing him to pull off all of his reality-bending tricks. But yeah, the beginning, middle, and end of this game, particularly the beginning and the end, are probably my favorite out of any Zelda game I have ever played. And that's saying something. And this is something I felt so strongly about that, hell, if I'm being honest, I was getting misty-eyed by the end of it. Every story beat, character, and cinematic, all of it was just jam-packed with the charming dialogue and moving music that the Zelda series is rightfully lauded for, in addition to so much heart and emotional resonance in general. This game really does cover it all. It evokes every single feeling out of you and does it with such a delicate balance. You know, just as Link and Ganondorf symbolize opposing forces of good and evil, the game flawlessly presents this harmonious blend of light and dark themes. It was also impactful and beautiful to witness. You guys, there's just so much more I can say about what makes this game so magical and why it means so much to me. But I'll leave it at this. The moving story, paired with a world where curiosity, exploration, and creativity are kings, makes this an instant classic that is every bit as satisfying as its predecessor. Nintendo truly struck gold twice with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom back to back, and it makes me so optimistic and excited for the future of the franchise, especially when you consider that the company will only go on to further iterate, expand, and improve upon the game that they've already made, if this sequel is anything to go by. So by now, I'm sure you guys want the answer to the million-dollar question. Do I think that this is a shiny, exemplary 10 out of 10 game? It is shiny, but I think it's just shy of a 10 out of 10. And hold on, I'm going to tell you guys why. As I've said before in plenty of my reviews, there's no such thing as a perfect video game. There's no such thing as perfect. You can't get there. There's no such thing as a perfect game, right? There isn't. Absolutely not. Every game out there is going to have their flaws, and that's okay. But some flaws are noticeable and others are microscopic, which compel me to rate them a 10. Tears of the Kingdom is in a funny spot where my heart wants to give this game a 10. I do firmly believe that in the grand scheme of things, this game is a masterpiece. It really is. But just like with Breath of the Wild, there are some small blemishes that aren't exactly difficult to see. And, you know, putting my personal feelings aside, I can definitely acknowledge those. With Breath of the Wild, that blemish clearly had to do with the weapon durability system, which was thankfully ironed out with Tears of the Kingdom. And now Tears of the Kingdom has its own two significant flaws, with the gameplay worth pointing out. Now the first one, which was probably the most nagging of the two, was the companion mechanics. Now this is an area where Breath of the Wild reigns superior in my opinion. The companion abilities and the way in which you activated them in that game were much better, I feel. With the exception of one of the passive ones, each ability had a dedicated button tethered to them on the controller, making them easy to activate. And the abilities themselves are all highly useful, but I couldn't say the same thing at all for Tears of the Kingdom, sadly. Besides maybe two of the companion abilities that had to do with the level traversal, I almost never found myself using any of the other ones. And that wasn't just because of how most of them weren't very useful, but also because they were a nightmare to activate. Now, as opposed to just holding down a specific button on your controller, you have to physically run up to your companion, hit A on your controller, then hit A again in order to activate their ability, and that's if you're even able to get to them safely in the midst of combat in the first place, which more often than not wasn't the case for me. Riju, wait, I need you, get over here. Riju, don't stand underneath that. Now, this isn't just a problem that is unique to me, and I've seen a lot of other people in the community be vocal about this as well. And so therefore, I've seen a lot of great solutions that the community has come up with as well to this problem. One of which is to have the abilities bound to a shortcut wheel of sorts. I think that's great, and I hope that Nintendo maybe implements something like that in a patch, although this still wouldn't exactly fix the abilities themselves being underwhelming. But yeah, overall, I just wish that the companion mechanics were a little more well thought out for this game. Now, the second little thing that I wanted to point out, which is yet another thing that maybe Nintendo can patch up with this game, is the menuing. Just like the first game, the menus are a cluttered mess for the most part here, and even though you can sort your items based on certain factors, which is nice, I still feel like there's some room for Nintendo to implement even better organizational structure moving forward, because it kind of got to the point where I just had a headache looking at, all the countless items I had accumulated through my inventory. But my issues with the menu didn't just have to do with the structure, but the lack of one very crucial feature as well, at least to me. And weirdly, that's Fusion. Here's the thing with Fusion in this game. Fusion is registered as one of Link's dynamic abilities, like Ultra Hand or Recall, allowing the player to use it while controlling him in the field. However, in the particular circumstance where you want to fuse items to his arrowheads before firing them, you need to do so in an entirely separate menu while the game is paused, which then begs the question of why Fusion in general can't be done through the inventory screen while paused, as opposed to having the player drop an item on the ground and then pull up the fusion ability in order to combine it with their weapon, which can be tedious and even dangerous to do in the midst of combat. Oh my god, come on. I have to reload because the fusing is so stupid. Oh man. Now, I have read through arguments made by some players suggesting that this was intentional on Nintendo's part, and that having to hold items, drop them, and then quickly fuse them to your weapons is a part of the challenge while fighting enemies. But I just personally couldn't see it that way, and to me it didn't feel challenging. It instead felt a little more frustrating. We start off things like so. No, fucking Link, please don't do stupid shit right now. Do not fuse with a splash fruit, idiot. No, and don't pick that up again, bitch. Alright. Drop that, Link, and fucking fuse that with the Master Sword. Oh my god. There you go. Alright, beautiful. I wish you could fuse to the inventory. But hey, as I said earlier, these two gripes of mine are things that can easily be alleviated in the next installment, if not patched up in this game itself. And I have no doubt that these aren't going to continue being issues down the line, given how Nintendo tackled the tiny issues with the first game with so much finesse here. Going forward, I'm really optimistic for the series, and despite these very tiny yet noticeable flaws, I remain very excited for what Nintendo comes up with next to one of my favorite video game series of all time. I believe series producer Eiji Onuma mentioned that they'd like to continue making more open world games, and if that's the case, I'd totally be on board if the quality of Tears of the Kingdom is anything to go by. These developers have proven to prioritize innovation and fun, and I can't wait to see the novel and mind-bending ways in which we interact with Hyrule in the future, be it within the same continuity setup in Breath of the Wild, or hey, you know what, maybe yet another soft reboot, or era within Zelda's many twisty and confusing timelines. Bottom line is, my excitement is just off the charts, and Tears of the Kingdom is a game that reminds me why The Legend of Zelda means so much to me, why it means even more to me now than it did before, and above all, why you should decide to go out and buy this game. I'm giving The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom the shiniest 9 out of 10 imaginable. Like I said, in my heart, it is a 10 out of 10 game, but critically, this is the score I feel like this amazing game deserves, and don't ever let that convince you that it isn't worth every single one of your pennies. Between this, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Final Fantasy 16, based on its demo alone, the battle for Game of the Year is going to be cataclysmic. And regardless of whether or not this game snags it, the fact remains that right now it's my personal favorite game of the year, easily. And that, 2023 in general is just going to go down as a legendary year for gaming because of all these quality behemoths. But that's it for today's review video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, so you can be up to date on these videos, which will keep coming until the end of time. And hey, also do be sure to follow me over on twitch.tv/AirDoubleIndian, where you can catch me streaming through these games live. Like I said earlier, I've still got so much left to accomplish in Tears of the Kingdom, despite recently finishing the main story, and I'm also going to be going full steam with Final Fantasy 16. So if you want to check out all those streams and more, make sure you head on over there. But until the next one, you guys, stay happy, stay healthy, stay positive, and as always, keep on keeping on.